Good morning. Today on Set to Love, we have feminine leadership coach, Gizem Cetgin. Cannot wait for this conversation all about relationships and how to improve them. So here we go.
You can live a life in flow where your deepest heart's desires become reality.
You are here to contribute through your essence, fall deeper in love with your life and the journey that you are on.
Take what works, ditch the rest, and always stay set to love.
Thank you for being a part of this community. We're all designed to live in flow. So let's go.
Good morning.
Good.
Hello. Good
Welcome,
morning.
Or
welcome.
evening into you. Evening.
Yes, good evening from Thailand, Copenhagen, Thailand. So good to be here.
Thank you, Gizem, for being with us today. I'd love just to jump right in and start out. If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself. What is a feminine leadership coach? How'd you get there? What do you do best? And then let's jump into creating these fully satisfied relationships.
Oh, yes. So I am actually a relationship and spiritual coach and a mentor, as well as feminine leadership coach. So my work has been mainly in the leadership area. I was working with corporations and coaching leaders on a new area, what we call conscious leadership and feminine leadership, which is all about leading by love. And that work really helped me get deeper into other areas, and the transformations that I experienced in my personal life really brought me into diving into relationships. So currently I work with women who are high-powered, driven, mainly leaning in their masculine, but who really want to create also deeply intimate, satisfying relationships, going beyond stifling expectations and softening into their feminine heart, and live from that place in their relationship. So that's my current work.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, me too.
Let's talk about these relationships. So what is your current status? Are you married? Do you have a partner? Are you where does the inspiration come from within your own relationship?
That's a great question. And so actually my points that I'm going to share today are all tying back to my own story. So 5-6 years ago, I was in my late 20s, divorced, and having a very difficult time understanding what just happened, and feeling completely lost about what I was hearing from dating advice and relationship advice and my own spiritual path, that I couldn't bring it all together and apply into my relationship. I was so confused because I was hearing this advice that's like, you got to have your expectations meet, and you got to have everything. It's take it or leave it type of very rigid advice. And so long story short, that relationship ended and I went into healing journey and also dating around and seeing what I have and really looking inward to how I show up, where I show up or don't show up. And fast forward, I came into my current relationship and I came with a certain amount of awareness that I knew that I needed to take responsibility for my own part, but I still had a lot of expectations, like in terms of what a partner should be like, what love is, how they should show up. I had this checklist in a partner. I was going into these manifestation exercises. They were saying, write down everything that you want from a partner, right? So that was how I was coming into the relationship. And I came in and I met my current partner, Christian, 3 years ago. He did not meet my expectations at all. And he was absolutely the opposite of me. I was very driven, career-oriented, go-getter. And he's the surfer dude. He just wants to chill and have a good time. And I was like, no, this is not going to work. But I kept coming back to him. I kept coming back to this relationship, understanding that I have all these boxes. How did I make these boxes? Whose boxes are they? Is this my own voice? Is it society's voice? Is it someone else's? And then as I started questioning all these expectations and boxes and really learning how to love, how to go beyond my ego, miracles happened in my relationship. For a year, I was in and out, constantly trying to decide the faith of the relationship, whether it was worth my time. I was looking at a relationship like that. Is it worth my time? Is he worth my time? And then I was like, wow, there's so much conditional love and so much ego in the way that I'm approaching this. Can I be really the woman that I want to be, truly embody? And that question changed everything. First of all, me. And then I saw him turn into the man of my dreams. Trade by trade, it's just like incredible. I didn't even have to badger him, force him, ask him, which I have done. And when I dropped those tendencies, he rose up. He just rose up with me. And I can't believe how blissful and incredible and satisfying our relationship feels. So I truly believe this is something that I didn't know was possible. So that's why I'm so inspired to share this. And I am so clear about how I have done this. This is no complicated, mysterious process. It's all about ego shedding. It's all about focusing here. It's all about cultivating your relationship with the divine, whatever that is for you, and really relying on that instead of making your partner everything. So that's where I am with my relationship, and it feels so good. And I wish that for everyone.
I love it. Thank you.
Wow. It's funny that this is what this is about this morning, because my daughter called me and we were talking about her relationship. And so I'm really excited to hear the things you have to say, because where ego can get in the way, or how, they're great. They love each other so much. But the advice that I gave her, I'm just curious to hear some of the things that you're going to say about how people go about having that kind of relationship that you have. So in some way, maybe this could help her.
Yeah. And
they're just on a different, it's not that they're on completely different pages, but they have a little bit like yours is saying, he was a surfer, and, she's really motivated and, really career focused, and not that he's not, but he's on a slower pace. So that's hard for her to say, there's no time for play. I just, we have a goal. We can do that when we're, a few years from now. Right now we have to, hone in and get the work done. So I'm curious, what you would tell someone like that, where they love each other,
yeah,
and they're
yeah.
really good together, but they're a little bit off. And how do you not be angry, and a better way to communicate that?
Yes. And I absolutely understand what you're saying, because that's how I was. There's so much good in the relationship. I was having so much fun. I was loved and cared for and all of that. But this like thing between us, me being driven, him not being that way or not showing up like that in the beginning, it was a big question mark for me, constantly thinking, are we going to grow together? Are we going to be able to grow together? And funny, you say that, Shelly, this is exactly the people that I coach. Like, this is this area that I really talk about extensively. So there's so many things to say. I'm just trying to sift it through. First thing that comes to my mind is why I call my work is feminine leadership. This is all about stepping into radical ownership, but it's not necessarily like taking the burden or making everything happen. It's more like really showing up as how you are in a relationship. And a lot of women who are successful, high achievers, right? Those tendencies are amazing and they help them do great things in the world. But when they come into the relationship, it may be getting in the way of like softening, really enjoying the moment, really connecting with their partners, like valuing other things that could bring so much vibrance into the relationship, into their lives. What I experience when I look beyond that, like my tendency to high achieve and go full drive, I saw that there's a part of me who's really, really craving for fun, who's really craving for play, and I wasn't allowing myself. So my first thing on that, like, are you able to see yourself, right? Are you able to evaluate yourself fully, not just like doing amazing things, but what are the other parts of to you, and are you able to embody it all to be the woman again that you want to be. And so maybe I'll go into the tips to fully
that'd be
talk
great.
about this, because I do answer that. Yeah, and so there's so many women like me, and I believe like your daughter, Shelly, I think we're in this era that we get to achieve so much, but that creates a tendency to play like males or play like in this rigid, overextended masculine area, which causes us to abandon the other parts of ourselves that are nurturing and loving. And the biggest, I guess, the bigger vision of what I do is all about removing the blocks, removing the obstacles to love, as Marianne Williamson says, right? So when we do that, there's this other part of ourselves that could be so healing, both for ourselves, but also for our spouses, for our homes, for our society. So that's kind of like the bigger umbrella of what I want to say. Like, that's so powerful to experience that shift and step into that loving, nurturing role. So the first tip is really looking into these expectations. There is a modern story made up that was very hard for me to let go, because I looked at Instagram, I looked at movies and books. All I saw was this fairy tale or like really idealized version of love. It seemed to me that, of course, they were talking about doing the work or like compromising, all these other things, but it wasn't really talking about what do you do when things are hard or when all your expectations are not met. Who do you become? Do you actually do? So the first step is to really looking at these expectations and saying, are they mine? How do they serve me? Are they the idealized version, modern story of love? Yeah, because beyond that, there is me, there is you in our essence, but we are not able to see them because of our filters and conditioning. It's through how it should be rather than how it is in this moment. So there's power in dropping into human to human, heart to heart space rather than am I getting what I want, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So are you saying that we shouldn't have expectations, or that we need to reevaluate the expectations, or do we form more realistic expectations? So what is it about, specifically about expectations, that holds us back or that doesn't help us move forward?
That's a great question, Eva. So I have a very Zen Buddhist perspective on it. Ultimately, I would say any expectations in terms of like how they should be, if there's a should, I would look into that. Of course, there's a space that you hold yourself, right? Like what you're available for. You're available for a loving, respectful relationship where you feel valued and seen, but it doesn't come from imposing or making it very, very specific. It's more like meeting yourself and meeting the other person and constantly opening up to it rather than having this list of qualities to manifest right before you. We grow, we help each other grow, right? So it's really looking at what's really, really important to you and being open to other qualities that maybe you feel so attached to. That's what I would say.
That's great. Thank you. That's
definitely
great.
And I think too, what you said is that you're focusing on helping the person to not have those expectations, because you can't change another person, but by giving them the grace and time that they need. That's one of the things that I was even telling my daughter this morning, was that maybe you need to nurture and have more time together instead of your free time being separate time. Maybe making some of your free time really be just the time for you two to nurture. You know what I'm saying? Because they're both working so hard that, you know what I'm saying? You do need time for play. We need balance. And that's what I hear you saying, is really just, not you're doing this, I'm doing that. Let's together, do some of these things to grow together.
That's right. And I mean, it's both, right? So it's showing up for that common time, but at the same time, of course, having personal space. But where is that desire for both is coming from? Is it coming from isolating? Is it coming from more achievement, right? That's the question is. And of course, like all the things that I say about softening is that not necessarily trying to be softened or trying to nurture. It's literally a part of ourselves that's always there. We just keep ignoring it because other things seems more important. Like achieving is more important, making plans is more important. It's just because we don't know what it feels like to really be in that space, right? So that's what I discovered for myself. And with the women that I'm working with, once they access to that, they're like, wow, this is a superpower. Like I just not only feel amazing, it helps my partner to actually step into their masculine. Like they want to actually serve and be with me instead of whatever their other tendencies are.
So let me ask you about your number 2. We talked a tiny bit about it before the show started, and it's becoming your ideal self. I might be paraphrasing. So how does that work in to this other framework that you're talking about with these expectations and stuff? How does that fit in?
So they're all interconnected. What shall we say? You can't change the other person. You can only inspire people to change. That's my belief and experience have been. So we expect our partners to become so many things. We want them to do this, do that, be a husband, be an adventure buddy, inspire me, grow with me, do everything with me, hobbies with me, like it's again, this goes back to the expectation. But ideally, really, what happens if you turn the mirror to yourself and see how you are showing up? Are you the ideal partner that you want to have? And that question does so many things. Number one is like, first of all, it gives you an honest look of how you're showing up. Let's say I wanted to show up as an accepting, loving, unconditionally loving person. And I looked at it, I wasn't doing any of those things. I was very conditional and I had so many things that I didn't accept about my partner, criticized a lot. So that gave me like, I asked my clients to rate themselves between 1 to 10, not 1 being not at all, 10 being absolutely. Are you really embodying, say, 5 to 10 traits that you absolutely want to have? So that gives you kind of honest assessment, and you see hard for you to embody those traits. Then it gives you an empathy, understanding how hard it might be for your partner to embody things that you want him to embody, if that makes sense. So it creates this bridge between you and the other human. Like it's hard to be our ideal versions, but as you focus on embodying those, and it's not going to be all at once, just picking one and practicing it. Say, I want to be more accepting. I'm going to give myself a month, 2 months to constantly focus on this, constantly practice this. Amazing shifts happen, right? Like you kind of change your identity slowly, and people look at you like, whoa, what's different about you? Like it's kind of surprising. They feel invited by that. They feel inspired by that. They want to return the favor. They want to do something nice to you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that second tip. That makes a lot of sense to me. And I think about when we project out what we want from someone else, like show up this way, show up that way, and then they don't do it, then that's the expectation that's not being met. And then you feel like what's wrong and you're questioning everything. And so I can see where if you just focus on yourself, making yourself better, showing up in those ways, how that then just resonates out. And I feel like that other person just sees that, feels that. I mean, something as simple as I love physical fitness. And I mean, I shouldn't say I love it, but I know it's good for me. But my partner doesn't really like doing it so much. So instead of me just not doing it and sitting with him just to be with him, I'll say, I'm going to go anyway. And what I found is I feel better when I go anyway. And I see that as I'm consistently going and showing up for myself, he will start to want to show up for himself a little bit more. Like, well, gosh, look at her. She's going out every day and doing this thing. Maybe I want to start exercising too. So I don't have to do anything. I just needed to show up for myself and not put this expectation that is something we have to do together. And it just works out better that way.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And it just, Go ahead, Sherry.
What advice would you give someone in, whereas let's just say it's me, that I feel that I'm doing what I need to do and it's always me who has to, I'm not, this is just paraphrasing. It's
Yeah.
my life. But for people that think they're the only one doing something, what would you tell a person where I don't feel appreciated? I don't, I feel like I'm showing up. I feel like I'm saving money. I feel like I'm doing all these things. And now you're going to tell me to look within? Like, how much more do you want from me? I feel like there are people out there that are going to feel like that because they already feel that's why they're hurt or angry or frustrated, because they feel they're doing it. And now you're going to ask them more.
Yeah. How do you inspire that change? All right.
That's right. So I felt that. I felt absolutely that way. Like, I just felt like my ex-husband didn't show up for me. My current partner in the beginning, I thought he didn't show up. I was doing the work. So then I looked at how I thought I was doing the work. What work was like that. How did I define that work? So there's so much for me, at least there was still so many things that I need to let go, release, and be in love, like truly embody love, to be able to claim that I'm doing work. So that's number one. The thing is, I say to people, usually, they come to you in your reality for a certain reason. So I'm a believer of universal laws and law of vibration. So you are in a vibration of someone not showing up fully. And you are in the same experience, which means you are standing in the same plane. It might be an indication of where you're not showing up, where you're not fully loving, where you're not fully not being in the frequency that you want to be. So if you are with a person in a certain frequency, which means you're participating in one way or another, if you change your frequency, which means truly whatever you want to embody and have, then that person cannot stay in your reality, or they have to rise with you. If that makes sense, if that answers your question. So when we say we're doing the work, I would really dig into that. There's so much still conditioning, ego, tightness, a lot of like maybe giving in the name of giving, but underneath emotional, unresolved issues. We are not able to see when they're in the mindset of I'm giving, but they're not doing the work. So it's just correcting beliefs around that, correcting the understanding of what is actually truly showing up.
That was a fantastic answer. I really think that that's super helpful. I mean, a little bit off track. I had a situation happen just the other day, and Eva happened to call me, and one more time, her advice to me was, what I could do. And it came so much of the time, it comes down to expectations and your ego and people hurting you and you. And in that part, it still applies to what you're saying right now, because when I let go and just came from love, like the advice Eva gave me, I found an inner peace. Nothing really changed, but I changed. And so I really do believe that even in relationships with partners or your parents or whatever it is, the secret is coming from love, because people aren't going to show up. My mom is not going to show up as the person I need her to be always. She's still the person she is, and I can just choose to love her. And that helped, by the way, Eva, that really helped a lot, because by the next day I did really well. And you feel so proud and so good when you can overcome some of these things that at the moment I was just so hurt and so mad. And in just a day, when you take on some of these ideas that you're saying, you really do, you can grow so much in just one day.
Absolutely, Sherry. That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I agree. It's this one theme that I think you guys also share. It's coming from love, which brings me to the last point. Like, if you really want to see anything change, any person to rise with you, make any changes in the relationship, the secret is these 3 words that I learned my own spiritual teacher: love, praise, gratitude. Right? It's truly that. Right? Seeing each other in their higher self, in their best expression, and constantly talking to that, constantly appealing to that, constantly thinking each other in that version instead of the ego and the behaviors that we don't like. Because truly that doesn't do anything other than making us apart and separate and blame and criticize. And what's the use of that? But personally, when I chose my partner's higher self, even it wasn't there yet, his best expression right now as it is wasn't there. And I kept wanting to see that, right? Just praising, feeling gratitude what I have. Miracles happen. And it wasn't easy. Like, I'm not saying this was a straightforward, I just loved him and praised him. No, like, I just doubted all the time, but I understood that it won't work. It won't work. I just kept creating suffering if I chose to just create separation between us. But yeah, so now he's the one, by the way, if you wanted to tell your daughter, he's the one who's so driven. He's the one who's motivating me. We're both entrepreneurs, and he's the one who's coaching me spiritually, personally. I'm amazed. And in the beginning, he wasn't interested in any of that.
That's
so
beautiful.
And
Gizem,
I think
can I ask one final question?
Together.
When you talk about praising, gratitude, and love, are you pointing out specific things? So like, let's say today, like a very practical thing, if you saw your partner do something for you, or you just sat for a moment and thought, what am I really grateful for him today? And then you just text him that, or like, is it real, tangible things in the moment that you're putting your awareness and focus on, and that's helping you to not put your awareness and focus on the gaps? Is that what you're saying?
So yes, I would definitely do whatever practical thing that works for you, whether you're saying in the moment, texting, affirming, however it works. But it's usually, this is in your heart. Like, it's we communicate before words, right? It's in our energy. It's in our nonverbal communication. It's like when you look at him and you see the amazing things that while you are with this person, his essence, his soul, right? Like, this being right in front of you, feeling reverence for that, feeling connection to that, instead of behavior, and seeing behaviors as something that you need to navigate. And if there are things that you don't like or you want change or whatever, there's a way to make requests. And I use nonviolent communication in my coaching to really make requests, or in my relationship too. And that way, you're still navigating the ego, the human behavior, but underneath, you're constantly feeding your energy with the love, gratitude, and praise, which really true the reason for any transformation, not the surface stuff.
Thank you so much for explaining that. Thank you so much for being on our show today and for sharing so much wisdom. This has been awesome. It's usually our show's like 15, 20 minutes, and we just kept having
Oh my gosh,
it's obviously a really important
realized.
area for a lot of people, and especially a lot of women, and wanting to really cultivate relationships that are strong and grounded and loving. So thank you for the work that you're doing in the world, and for finding it the way that you have. I love how things come together, and it sounds like your story is just another one of those where you kind of say no more to this path and start going somewhere else, and you just keep making strides in that way. And here you are, an expert in this field now. So thank you so much for being on our show. How can people find you, connect with you, if they want some guidance and some support in their relationships?
Thank you so much. First of all, it's been a pleasure. I loved hearing from you, and thank you for your beautiful questions. So I just put my Instagram handle here at Gizem Cetgin here. So that's the best way to reach out to me. Just directly messaging me if they want to talk to me, just chat, or learn more about my services. That's where they can find me.
Perfect. Thank you so much again for being on our show, best friend.
I really want to have you come back. Please come back and we'll have another conversation, because this was amazing. And what you're doing is you're making great couples that love each other. Instead of just giving up, you're giving them purpose and hope that you can make something that's good, amazing, and great. So
Thank you so much.
So much. I'm sending you a big hug, and best friend, I love you so much.
I love you too. Thanks
Thank
everyone
you,
for watching
ladies.
today. Gizem, hang on one second while we hit the ending clip here. And thanks everyone for being a part of our show today and a part of our family. We love you and have a wonderful week. And we'll see you next Monday. Bye.
Hit the bell. Hit the bell.
Bye.